We are kicking things off with a battle in the Big Ten East, a top 10 matchup between undefeated Penn State and Michigan. The first time all season either of these teams is playing a ranked opponent, and the winner controls their conference and playoff fate. Tyler Donohue and Sam Webb are here to preview a big one in the Big House. And guys, this is a game for fans of running the ball. A couple of the best running backs in the country in different phases of their careers. Blake Corum waited his turn for the spotlight. Meanwhile, Nick Singleton came into State College as a freshman phenom. Tyler, how important is the ground game for winning this one?
It's vitally important for Penn State. You think about the last time before this season that they had a 100-yard rusher was the last time that they were at the Big House. Kevon Lee in November 2020. That's how long they waited until September when Nick Singleton went 100-plus against Ohio, then did it again against Auburn. And oh, by the way, fellow freshman Kaytron Allen comes up with a 100-yard rushing performance of his own in September. Both of those guys got 21 carries in the last matchup before the bye against Northwestern. Penn State has not dished out those kind of carries very often since Miles Sanders and Saquon Barkley were here. So it says a lot about the trust they have in them. They've lost a couple of scholarship running backs in Devin Ford and Keziah Holmes to the transfer portal since the preseason camp opened up. So it's just those two freshmen and the aforementioned Kevon Lee, who's now a junior. They're going to lean on these guys. Singleton's at just over 7 yards a clip. Kaytron Allen is over 5 yards a pop. Singleton, the more long distance threat, but to me, if they want to wear this one down and if they're in a position to put this game away, it may be Kaytron Allen who has the skill set more to do that in between the tackles at this stage of their careers.
Yeah, I think for Michigan, it starts with Blake Corum, a guy who Penn State didn't see last season. It was a Hassan Haskins show, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I think Blake was a little banged up for that game. But a running back dynamic that is more versatile this year. That's not taking anything away from H2, who was a tremendous back rush for, I think, a $156 against Penn State last year. But Michigan has two guys that can go 80, and they can catch it out of the backfield. And so while all eyes will certainly be on Blake, and he had another 100-yard game last week, continues to, when it comes to reaching pay dirt, be one of the top in the country, if not the top in the country in rushing touchdowns. Their ability to make plays out of the backfield, and that's where I think a guy like Donovan Edwards, who you saw sparingly in this game last year, but is a focal point, has been back from injury for a couple of games now, and it just really feels like this is the type of game where you say you want to feature a guy like that, a guy who could have been, he was a 5-star running back coming out of high school, could have been a 5-star receiver if he wanted to. They use him in the passing game, but not as much as I think we're going to see him get used in a game like this. So I think those guys as weapons out of the backfield could be one of the keys in this game.
These two quarterbacks also with two very different journeys. J.J. McCarthy had to win his starting job in season. Meanwhile, it feels like we've been watching Sean Clifford play for like 70 years at this point. Sam, how much does their experience under center affect this game?
Yeah, JJ is an inexperienced starter, but not an inexperienced college guy. He got his feet wet last year. He played in big games and in hostile environments. I think back to last year against Michigan State, where he came in and threw a touchdown pass. So he was able to get his feet wet last year. He played against Georgia in the playoff game. And now he's had some trial under fire. He was on the road at Iowa. That was a big moment. I know Iowa isn't a great team, but they're a strong defense. I thought he acquitted himself well. I think last week at Indiana, the adversity of Mike Hart going down and having to rally the team, not just the offense, but the team, and the plays that he made, the command that he had of the team, his progression reading, all of that went to another level. There are aspects of the passing offense that they use now that he can access that they couldn't before. And then this is another thing about the running game that we didn't talk about with Blake Corum. This kid is a threat with his legs. That is going to be a factor in this game, I think, as well.
It does feel like I've been covering Sean Clifford since I was in college. It hasn't been that long, but a four-year starter now. This is the fourth time he's going up against Michigan. I will note it's his first time playing in front of a crowd at Michigan. A couple years ago when they got the win, it was eerily empty in that stadium. So he has encountered road environments. He's got a couple starts on his belt against Ohio State. He's played in some New Year's Six bowls. So you think that you have Sean Clifford pretty figured out. The question for Penn State fans is, do you also have his ceiling figured out, and is that going to inhibit progress for Penn State moving forward? 13 touchdowns on the season, 2 interceptions. His completion percentage starting to fall back towards 60%. he really needs to get in sync downfield with his targets in this matchup. I'm looking at Parker Washington. He's maxing out right now at 73 yards in a single game this season. That's not enough after losing Jahan Dotson. Keandre Lambert-Smith is really a field stretcher for them, a guy who can do some special things in space. He's a question mark right now from a health standpoint. Exited early against Northwestern. We did see him at practice this week, but Mitchell Tinsley is a name to know here. The Western Kentucky transfer has 3 touchdowns on the season. That leads all Penn State receivers. He had 14 of them last year at a lower level of college football. And then Brenton Strange, as Sean Clifford looks for a safety net, he's really stepped into that role, probably as much of a safety net as tight end that they've had since Pat Fryermuth. Sean Clifford can lean on those guys, but I don't think Penn State can afford to lean on Clifford, keep him to 30, 35 passes or fewer in this game, be able to balance the run game. I think that's the recipe, not leaning on Sean Clifford's arm on the road.
Let's talk about these defenses, guys. I remember Jim Harbaugh kind of drew some laughs in the summer when he said this defense might be even better than last year's after losing Aiden Hutchinson and others to the NFL draft. On the Knit side, Manny Diaz in his first year as D coordinator. Both of these squads ranked as some of the best in the country. Granted, this is a much bigger challenge than they've seen all season. Tyler, start us off here. How is the defense making it work?
Penn State set the tone in game one. They played a really pass-happy offense at Purdue. They weathered that storm. They were able to come up with some key breakups, some key interceptions, and along the way, they now lead the nation in pass breakups. It's been pretty consistent for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Their status as the #1 team there. They got Joey Porter Jr. He could be the first round pick at cornerback from this program, but it's not just about him. Jair Brown has really stepped up and taken the mantle where Jaquan Brisker left it last year as an All-American safety. I think the return of P.J. Mustipher, who was not part of this matchup last year, he was playing at an all-Big Ten caliber level last season before his injury. He's getting back to that kind of a form. And the guy to watch here, who's also new to this Michigan and Penn State matchup, is Chop Robinson. He was with Maryland as a freshman last year. He has come in and really quickly asserted himself as perhaps the most dynamic edge rusher that Penn State fields through 5 games. So under Manny Diaz, the takeaways have been piling up. They've got at least 3 in the last 3 matchups, including a big day on the road at Auburn. But they're going to have to come up with some splash plays because J.J. McCarthy is a dynamic presence back there. So they're going to have to corral him in the backfield, not let him escape and extend plays downfield.
Yeah, corral him in the backfield. I think that's a key for Penn State, and I think the same key is there for Michigan. They got, I think, 7 sacks in the game last year. Sean Clifford was running for his life. Now, you don't have Aiden Hutchinson. You don't have David Ojabo, but I think people would be surprised to know that through 6 games, Michigan has more sacks on the season than they had last year with those 2 guys. 14 sacks through 6 games last year, 22 sacks in the same span this year, and you're getting it from all over. I think the best player on defense right now is Mike Morris, the understudy to Aiden Hutchinson. He can get after it with his hand in the dirt. He has 5 sacks so far. He can get after it with his hands in the dirt. He can drop in the coverage. He can play the run. But Iyabi Yoki, the former Alabama 5-star guy, he has made his presence felt here in a short order. And then the coverage guys behind him, I think the secondary has been a real revelation. Jamon Green has had a strong start to the season. DJ Turner did a good job against Jahan Dotson last year. He's not facing Jahan Dotson this year. And then the nickel, Mikey Sainristil, between he and Mike Morris, I think there's a debate about who's the best player on Michigan's defense, making a lot of plays. But the key for Michigan, get to Sean Clifford. Yes, you have to stop the run. You have to be solid in your run fits. But if you can bother him, you can bother them. And they bothered him last year with the 7 sacks. They have to be able to do that again this year. If they win that battle, who gets more pressure? If they get more pressure on Clifford, then Penn State's able to get on J.J. McCarthy. I think that'll be another big key to the game.
All right, great stuff, guys. Sam and Tyler, thanks for your time. And if you like this, check out their work all season long on Michigan Insider and Lions 24/7.